I hit record, so go on and get all your farts out, get your burps out, get your vapes out, get your puking out.
We're going to be vaping the whole time. I sent you a reaction video on YouTube. Did you notice that guy vaped in the middle of the video?
I saw it.
How did you feel about that? Oh, look, there's another one.
I know that he knows he's on camera.
Should we say...
So that's what makes it appear like he's a tool.
No.
He's like, oh, these people are watching me. I got to make sure I hit a vape in the video.
Speaking of tool, should we go full hashtag transparency and just tell people what we're thinking about doing?
I know, by the way, I know people are going to call me out for vaping on the air. I do that because I don't think that you can hear me. And it turns out you always can.
Which I'm the vapor, but we didn't talk about this. I did, so a week ago maybe, I decided to do a Facebook live stream while I was doing laundry. Do you remember that? You were watching it at work and you didn't hear any of it?
Oh, yeah. I just opened that video just to make the comment and then I left.
Right. I had to explain vaping on there. Evan DeGraff, it was like, but why do you vape? Like he was disappointed in his hero. And I had to explain it. I had to do the whole thing of...
He's a good boy.
Well, it's not something I'm proud of.
I got addicted to nicotine because I thought it was cool, man. It's not cool.
I explained it all. Don't join a hardcore band. Don't go on tour. Don't smoke cigarettes.
Yeah. That's funny. So was he disappointed in you? Or was he like, yeah, man, I don't know. Just started taking acid myself.
I don't know. For somebody that's so like...
What if he just opened up like that?
I hope Evan is listening to this right now, but
he's not.
Evan has like this big personality, especially for how young he is. I think he has a bright future, but I could see the judgment in his eyes. What did he say? He said, I went to a 311 concert. I hate the smell of weed. just like, well, okay.
I messaged Ralph earlier today because there's a potential guest that I'm thinking about. I'm trying to get on Sight and Sound, and I knew that he's welcome anytime though. I knew that he would be interested in said person, so I messaged him and I said, "Hey, guess who I might be getting on Sight and Sound?" And he goes, "Christian." I said, "Ralph, why would I message you to tell you I can get Christian on the show?"
That's like
I was like.
That would be like, obviously Christian would be a great guest on the podcast, but it would also be like one of the least exciting person. It's like, oh, the guy that they talk to.
Right. So I don't know what's more ridiculous, his guess or his assumption as to why I was messaging him. I just thought it was funny.
The interest in getting Christian on an episode of Sight and Sound would be like equal to be like, hey guys, guess what? Jay's going to be on the movie episode this week. It's like, well, oh, wonderful.
To Ralph's credit, I think it's a lot more difficult. But it's funny, speaking of all of our buddies, it was Brad that posted the top post in the page or whatever in the group, and it showed who commented and did that the most in our group, and Kevin Marks was the person who took the lead on it, which is
by 200 comments.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's funny how you realize how few people. We're almost to 200
I know.
members.
Where did that come from?
And that was like a list of 10 people.
8.
And the 10th, or 8, excuse me. Oh, even worse. Because the 8th person was Evan at 0
posts. Yeah. 0 posts.
0 posts.
Right.
Yeah.
There's some people in there that just, like, how do we have that many? And I feel like we talk to the same 30 people.
Yeah.
That's strange. For anybody that's new, I feel like we don't talk about this enough or remind people this enough. For anybody that's new to the Facebook group, first of all, thanks for joining. That's great. But we didn't start this group. Brad Donovan started the group. This is as much your all's thing as it is for us. We just come in there to hang out. So, but it's been really nice. The comments in that post ended up turning into people's like appreciation for it, which I like. It makes me really happy. So much so that somebody even like used the thing that we say all the time. They said, just like what you like. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. We're passing down some life lessons.
We need more females in the group.
100%.
Christina, repping us hardcore. We have Kristen. I think there's a couple others that I'm forgetting, but she was holding it down. But
Kayla would be in the group, but she doesn't have Facebook. So.
That's true. We need more of those. So
every time,
throw out your invites.
Every time somebody leaves a comment about Kayla, I show it to her, and she enjoys it.
She flattered.
Ladies love Kayla. Yeah, ladies love the ladies. They need more representation on Sight and Sound.
Is that true? I thought girls hated all other girls.
No, I think when she was on...
They're never really actually friends with each other. They always talk about each other behind them.
That's an overgeneralization.
Maybe.
Kristen and Christina both mentioned just how nice it was to have her on our Stranger Things review that we did.
Sometimes I feel bad because I'm guilty of texting Kristen and saying, I need your take on this because I need a female perspective. Right. Sometimes I feel bad, like, to label it that, but...
Well, you're not a woman, so...
I know. I mean, the education I think is important, but, like, I asked her about what's going on with Matt Damon recently in his comments because I looked at him and I was like, I kind of get it. Maybe he didn't do it in the best way, but right. I can see where he's coming from and what am I missing? Am I missing the mark here? And so when those things kind of pop up, I like to go to her for that. I've done that a couple times. So, yeah.
Can I talk to you about something that I'm stressed out about?
You stressed?
Yeah, very stressed.
I already know.
What is it?
Florida.
That's exactly what it is. But it's not even Florida. It's this whole last couple of weeks of the year has been an absolute shit show. I explained to somebody today, I said, I'm super busy at my day job, but that's like the most manageable thing because I'm only there for a certain amount of time. Monday, I went Christmas shopping from 5:30 p.m. until 9:30 at night. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I cleaned my house. Today, I'm podcasting. I have to watch Schmoes. Then tomorrow, we're podcasting. We're doing After Schmo. It's, Wednesday when we're recording this. And then I've got to find some time between now and when I leave to record my album of the year list videos. And I don't know if it's going to get done. Not that it even really matters, but I don't know if it's going to be able to happen. So kind of bums me out.
Why are you setting it yourself on such a strict schedule? Why can't it just come out later?
It can, except I've told people that it's coming out this week. So that sort of bums me out, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a thing. I think more than anything, I'm just ready for it to be 2018 and back to our normal schedule. I feel like we're off right now.
You think we're off?
Not off, but just like, we didn't do weekly last week. That's weird. We're not really doing weekly this week, but we kind of are.
This is weekly.
I know. I'm not putting out a music episode.
I got you covered, buddy.
I'm going to be in Florida. Feel free to. That would be very interesting. Let me tell you guys about a band called Seosin. Lincoln Park. Rest in peace, Chester Bennington. Why is Balance and Composure breaking up?
I can talk about Backstreet Boys versus NSYNC through the years.
That'd be fantastic. I don't know, man. I'm going to try to take people along with me to Florida.
What city specifically again?
Orlando.
Okay.
Going to Harry Potter World. I will be
That's
there
right.
on Christmas Day. The best franchise that nobody's talking about.
The best
right
movie franchise.
That's right.
That Star Wars is stealing from currently.
That's right. Yeah. Should I get a wand?
Well, yeah.
I'm going to give you my...
Are you a sentimental guy? Like, do you like to bring home gifts and memorabilia from your vacation spots, from your trips?
Let me answer your question with a question. Do you think I'm a sentimental guy?
No. I think the only thing of value to you are your clothes. So, but you also wouldn't bring home a shirt that's like Harry Potter World, where dreams come true, 2018.
God, no. You know my problem with shirts with the graphics on them? When I see them, I think, I could just make a better one.
Yeah. You mean like my Last Jedi shirt I made last night?
That was fun. It was fun talking through that with you.
I thought you hated it.
No. The one that you actually uploaded? I told you I liked it.
Thanks.
I was just trying to challenge you.
And it's 100. It was awesome to kind of see it unfold and document that, because I sent you one that was just the most simpleton thing, and you were like, well, keep going. And then I did things with Photoshop that I don't really get to exercise, so that was a lot of fun.
Right.
And but now I'm second guessing the whole design, because now it looks like it's a rebellion or resistance poster with the First Order logo on it, but that's
right. Well, that's okay. I mean, that's the process of. I mean, that's just a creative process in general, which you're no stranger to, but especially with graphic design, that's part of my motto. Everything can be a little bit better.
Another part of the creative process is putting things out and then being disappointed and underwhelmed by the reaction, and it currently has 0 sold.
Yeah, you deal with that way more than I do.
I thought it was gonna go like hot takes and sausage.
I don't know why you do that. Why are you like that? Why do you get so? Why do you have expectations about how people should react?
It's not expectations in the sense that like I'm a failure if this doesn't take. Right. It was the fact that I'm sitting there going, "Oh, this is gonna sell." Star Wars is hot.
Is that an entitlement thing? And
I don't know. Maybe
I don't mean in the way that's like the younger generation is entitled.
I'm just hoping. I mean, I'm hoping that there's a get-rich-quick scheme around every corner.
Yeah, I know.
So that's what it is. I'm reaching and I'm grabbing and I'm saying, this is what takes me to the top.
I don't mean this in a negative way. I think it's honestly just our mindsets and perspectives. I think you have that. You're constantly searching for that. Would you say? What is this? Creative control?
I'm constantly waiting for something to take me somewhere else.
Right. Do you think it would be more likely to come if you didn't search for it as much?
I'm a big believer in making it happen. Like right. I hate everything happens for a reason.
Right. But I
just think there's a sedimentary. Like, hold on. I'm trying to think of how I want to go with this. I just think that the everything happens for a reason type of thing, if you give weight to that, you're not giving weight to the potential and the amount of work that you can do to make something happen for yourself. So,
right. I think I get what you're saying. I think that's a generalization in the same way as it's like all people on welfare are lazy. Whereas some people on welfare are on welfare because they've had a hard luck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I categorize those sort of get rich quick sort of things, I categorize them as you can't always look for the winning lottery ticket.
Yeah.
In the way that most things, if it's hard to win the lottery, so most get rich quick quote unquote schemes just don't work.
Yeah.
People see the success stories, but if it was that easy, then everybody would be successful. But you have something. You are doing something. We have Sight and Sound. It's a 10-year plan.
Sight and Sound Sports 2020.
Have you ever heard of Gary Vaynerchuk?
The Secret?
Gary Vaynerchuk? I think we need to get you.
I
think I need to prescribe you another dose of.
I really don't. I
think you do.
I see pictures of him because we're subscribed to him, and I just look at it, and I'm exhausted by the image of him. Like,
what would Gary Vee say about the get rich quick scheme?
That it's nothing. That it's full of shit. That's fine.
Exactly.
I'm gonna start my own branding. I'm gonna start my own YouTube channel that's all about going after.
I'm writing you a prescription
how
right now.
to approach the get-rich-quick scheme depending on your abilities and standards. And
you know what the initial dose of Gary Vaynerchuk is? Like the tiny dose to get you into your medication cycle is just listening to the song. Me and Gary Vee up in the office.
Talking about ownership and leverage.
That's right. Ownership and cabbage.
You know what T-shirt would sell like crazy?
Ownership and leverage.
No.
Okay.
Just putting... Gary V. We get it.
We've talked about this. I'm not laughing at the joke because you've already told me this joke.
But it would be amazing.
It's okay though.
And I would love it. I would love to send that to all of his fans. It'd be hilarious.
What's his name? K-Rock? D-Rock?
D-Rock.
Whatever that guy's name is. Anyways.
K-Love.
We're here for a very special occasion. Our last podcast. Not our last podcast of the year. Maybe it is. I have no idea.
Band name, call it.
This is our last time together in the year. And we tease something in the Sight and Sound Facebook group. And if if there are people listening to this that aren't a part of that, we have a little thing that we've sort of talked about throughout the entire year. We like to call it the Pop Culture Crown. Why don't you explain to people what the Pop Culture Crown is?
Pop Culture Crown is something that we have referenced pretty much all year. We essentially, in this episode, are going to talk about, as far as the three mediums of music, movies, and television. Did you know that that's what we cover? Music, movies, and television. We're going to talk about the significance and the impact that all of those things had. And we're going to, at the end, crown one of them as 2017's Pop Culture Crown.
Who won the year?
Who won the year, if you will. Exactly. And I'm pretty excited about how we're going to do it, too. We're going to kind of go month by month and just kind of tally some things. And I have our podcast library pulled up, so I'm going to read the topics that we covered, and we'll just kind of navigate and get a feel for where we were then versus where we are now. And it's a very complicated algorithm that Jay and I currently have.
It's a very convoluted.
Yeah. Jay and I currently have this algorithm and thing written out. I had to draw all over my wall. It's all spread out here, and none of you would understand, but we have worked extensively on this episode. We've been working on this since February.
We must be on separate pages because I'm pretty much just going to go with my gut on how I'm feeling about things. But yeah, listen, we don't. Maybe we do it from time to time. Maybe we don't. But this is sort of our opportunity to give a little bit of a retrospective on the year. Talk about the pros, the cons, maybe even get a little bit of a deep dive on the mindset of looking at pop culture and stuff. I've had to sort of battle some things out in my own mind. I don't know. We think about some weird stuff when it comes to thinking about pop culture. Like how does this affect the zeitgeist? Yes, this is a podcast where we can often use the term zeitgeist and not sound like a complete
There's a new podcast
douche.
called Daily Zeitgeist. Did you know that?
I don't care. Is it called Sight and Sound?
No, but there are a lot of things called Sight and Sound.
That's true. There's a lot of things called zeitgeist.
Yeah. So anyway, is that pretty much all we have to do as far as introing the show? It's just.
I think so, and I mean, I can
pretty straightforward.
I can safely say, we both represent separate elements here on Sight and Sound. I'm the music guy or the movie guy, and we're both TV guys, but we cross over and we dabble in things on each other's sides from time to time. And
we dabble.
I can safely say that I can remove myself from any sort of bias. I'm being as objective as possible, and I'm trying to escape a bubble. I'm not going to tell you how amazing the new Glassjaw album was and how it should be on its own the reason why music won the year. Listen, I'm very aware.
Well, I'm also aware, even for example, the first weekly episode of the year was Star Wars Rebels.
Right.
That has no business coming up on this entire podcast.
Ever again, yeah. I remember.
Well, ever again, maybe in the sense that we're on the last season currently, but
that's true. I remember at one point when we were working with TV Time, we tried to pitch maybe hosting Star Wars Rebels, and then we looked at the stats and we were like, nobody watches this show.
Yeah.
I mean, there you go. Let me pop your Star Wars bubble. I'm so annoyed with Star Wars people at this point, pro and
I just put out my Mark Hamill video. You think I'm excited?
If I wasn't,
we'll get there.
If I was a subscriber to Sight and Sound, just not a part of it, and I saw that video, I'd be like, ugh.
My video?
Yeah, but that's not negative towards you. That's just where I am right now with my Star Wars content.
Based on our history and the things that are recommended to us now, it's just constantly people bitching about the movie.
Absolutely.
I can just tell by the thumbnails and titles. So, but anyway, what we're going to do is, I've got all this stuff in front of me. I have the month of January, and I'm just going to throw things out, and we will just talk about what stands out and what doesn't. So are you ready to go with January?
Yeah, I'm going to have you sort of lead the charge on reading that because I can't see a goddamn thing.
Do you want me to you want me to read all the movie topics and then the TV topics and then the music topics? You want me to throw a bunch of things out?
Let's I don't know. Do however you think. You've hosted some podcasts before.
Okay, well when it came to music in January, we had Run the Jewels, we talked about Coachella, the XX, John Mayer, and Drake and Migos.
Yeah, I don't remember what the state of Drake was in that month because I don't think More Life even came out until a little bit later, so we'll put a pin in that. I think Run the Jewels, listen, the biggest discussion in regards to music this year, and we talked a little bit about it off air, is the fact that music for me, and I've talked about this on my music show, music didn't have the sort of crossover mass pop culture appeal that it would typically have. Like, for instance, if I were to make the statement in 2016 Hotline Bling was had a cultural impact, would you know what I meant by that?
Yes.
You heard it everywhere.
The memes.
It became a meme.
Yeah.
People doing the dance.
GIFs. Yeah.
I mean, those sort of things don't really resonate with
that
this
was
year.
one of my most played songs of this year.
Of this year?
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, Run the Jewels, in my opinion, were one of the few artists that actually did have a little bit of crossover success. This is a group that sort of made their breakout of the underground into the mainstream. I mean, they were on late night talk shows. You had Killer Mike doing all of his, political stuff.
Real time. They're in the Black Panther
I was
trailer.
about to say, their appearance in the Black Panther trailer alone, I think, sort of signifies that. They had comic books about them. I mean, they just of all of the people that you've listed, and just I would say in general, they were definitely a shining moment for music this year.
Yeah, definitely. So now do we go on to like TV or movies?
I mean,
Run the Jewels stood out to you out of all those?
Yeah, you don't have any music takes off that.
I mean, other than the fact that Run the Jewels is phenomenal and one of my favorite albums of the year, so that definitely stands out to me.
The last point that I will make, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit in February, but going into this year, my goal for me personally was to seek out more rock music this year, and the strangest thing about that was the fact that so many of the same type of bands dominated the early part of the year. Mm-hmm. But we'll get to that if we cover You Me at 6.
Well, You Me at 6, we did that, I did that discography episode. Yeah, that's when this album came out.
So it was around January.
Yeah, and that was just a really disappointing album for me.
Right.
I thought that was going to ring in the new year. One of my favorite bands.
Right.
And I don't know. Well, I mean, it was a celebration of them, but
strangely enough, with that album, that was one of the first albums that I sort of raised my eyebrow at and was like, I'm going to try to get into this. Unfortunately, it wasn't that great. One of their songs, Heavy Soul, ended up being in my top 10 singles of the year list.
Yeah.
And what's funny about that, and if we're talking about this year in the music landscape, so you had You Me at 6, Lower Than Atlantis, Def Havana, all those bands that are very, very similar to one another. Mm-hmm. In another time and in another era,
Don Broco,
those types of bands would have been larger than life with some of the songs that they wrote. But this is just not the time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Run the Jewels is more on my radar than You Me at 6 is. By 1 year later, here we are. So when it came to movies, we were talking about, like, we were ramping up for Oscars. So it was like La La Land, Monster Calls, Sing Street, the Terminator reboot had just popped up, and we were talking about Star Wars as well. I don't remember what it was about Star Wars, maybe some kind of announcement. But I think what stands out to me is that maybe it's because we're in that movie bubble or whatever, but A Monster Calls just kind of was totally forgotten about for me. That movie just kind of came and went, but La La Land really has stood the test of time as far as like still being in a conversation, whether it be...
Would that be for this year?
No, it was last year.
Right.
It was what accidentally, or it was what, the whole debacle at the Oscars.
Right.
They announced that it was the winner, and then it ended up not being the case.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Warren Beatty misread the card, and there was this whole scandal, and it was actually Moonlight.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. But as far as what I mean about La La Land lasting all year, it's just mainly sort of about the conversation, whether it's overhyped or people complaining about it. Whether like I still think that that's kind of always been around, more so than say a Monster Calls and Sing Street. Me personally, there was that whole Sight and Sound debacle about the quote unquote date I had on La La Land. Do you remember talking about that on the podcast?
No.
You don't remember that at all?
FCT.
I talked about going to see La La Land on the air, and it pissed off the girl that I went with.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I don't. Was it La La Land? Was it associated with that? I thought it was Game of Thrones.
Why would it be Game of Thrones? Anyway. So yeah, there's that. When it comes to TV, we were talking about Rebels or whatever. Taboo. That show just kind of came and went. I don't know if that was very lasting for us.
I remember being turned off of that show because of the trailer. I said, I don't know what this is about.
Sneaky Pete.
Fuck that show.
Young Pope and The Path.
This was the month that I would, if there is one anchor that could weigh down television, it would be the month of January. I gave up on all of those shows.
Yeah.
I literally tapped out. If you want to do yourself a favor and just find a very interesting video in Sight and Sound lore, go look up the video. I was covering The Path week to week on our YouTube channel, and we found this odd fan base that were very into it.
Yeah.
And eventually the show was just terrible, and I couldn't watch it anymore. So I had to make a video saying that I can't watch the show anymore. And people were like, well, we respect you for making this video. They were such a polite fan group.
Yeah. Nice guys, but who cares? So just judging by our conversation, when it comes to music, I think it's the clear winner. Because
I think so.
With movies, well, we're still talking about Run the Jewels, I think, and I think it's going to be on one of our favorite albums list.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be on
La La Land was sort of a situation where that was more about 2016,
right?
The year prior. I mean, we were only dealing with Oscar noms in La La Land at this point, and all of TV was forgettable.
Right. Yeah, and I would say the only thing that sort of resonated throughout the rest of the year, especially, again, if you go back to that Run the Jewel song being included in that first Black Panther trailer, I think that alone could just give it the nod.
So we're in agreement, music wins
I think so, yeah.
Cool. Okay.
And we're keeping tally here, but that's not necessarily, that doesn't mean...
Yeah, it's just a gauge.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of taking notes, essentially, with our conversation. So February... It's going to take me a second because I'm going to have to click back and forth between two tabs. But we were talking about the Super Bowl halftime shows with music, our full-length album still relevant. Prince had passed. Let's see, what else? The Grammys fallout, Linkin Park. I think that was... Is that when we had our giant Linkin Park discussion? I think it was later. I think that was over the summer.
I think that one might have been...
Acceptance.
Yeah.
It was a Linkin Park retrospective. That was February. Man, I feel like that was forever ago. Or not that long ago. And then Future.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of 3 times Future could have come up this year, considering he dropped 3 albums. Not a strong year for music. We obviously had the discussion about Prince's passing. Doesn't really have anything to do necessarily with the landscape of this year.
That's significant.
It's definitely significant, and I mean, it was a big loss. I think I don't know, man. The Linkin Park thing, that was a really fun discussion to have. Obviously, it would have interesting implications in the future, but yeah, music, nothing really sticking out to me there.
That's it, huh? Already? That's all you got?
Pretty much. I mean, I remember being down on music early on the year. I was getting worried about it.
When it comes to movies, I can already tell this is almost going to be nothing, because we were talking about the Batman news. We were talking about, which is significant.
Yeah,
it's definitely significant, and that's going to pop up a lot.
I mean, I think if we're talking about again, pure resonance within the pop culture landscape, you do have to take into certain things like hype and news cycles. I mean, in 2016 with Kanye West, it wasn't just his album that came out. It was the fact that he had a floating stage for his tour. It was the fact that he did an album release at Madison Square Garden. So I think DC in general lifts movies one step closer to the pop culture crown, specifically because of how much conversation it generated.
Well, even Wonder Woman alone, but yeah,
exactly.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. But the Batman, it was the first time we talked about the Batman this year, and World War Z 2 news that we got. something along is David Fincher or something like that. And I don't even remember what that was about. We learned that Donald Glover joined The Lion King, and we talked about Joe Carnahan. I think that was probably back when he was riding X-Force or whatever. So, I don't know, man. Nothing really stands out. We previewed Logan, but that's going to kind of be March, really.
What was television that month?
You want to get to television now?
Yeah.
So television was, let's see, we had Bates, we had Crashing, Big Little Lies, which is probably going to be huge. I don't remember when that. Yeah, it was this year. Big Little Lies came out, and then let's see what else. Stranger Things 2. That was during the Super Bowl trailer, and Legion. So I think that kind of
Legion in general just seems like it was forever ago. Like I actually kind of forgot that it came out this year, not because it's a forgettable show, but just because so much good television happened in 2017. Big Little Lies was such a pleasant surprise because I think going into those trailers, we obviously knew we were interested in it by the cast alone. Jean-Marc Vallée, I mean, everything he films looks gorgeous and beautiful, but to see it actually pay off the way that it did, I mean, that's a show. When you say television in 2017, that's a show that I still think about. So, yeah, I think. I mean, I'm gonna give it to TV. I don't know about you.
TV wins hands down. I don't think it's difficult at all.
And I think the best thing about those two shows, and actually, before we move on any further, let me ask. For you, if you had one word to categorize 2017 for all of pop culture, does any word sort of stick out to you? Like for me, it's surprises, because most of music was all a surprise. You had a lot of debut albums that came out this year that surprised me, and TV was sort of the same thing. Like we'll talk about Master of None. Master of None was never even on my radar for something I should have given a shit about.
I don't know if I could sum it up to one word. Okay. I don't have one ready.
Do you know where I'm coming from though? With surprise and Okay.
I don't know. Maybe the fact that it's hard to label kind of goes with like unsuspecting.
Yeah.
So
similar. And Legion and Big Little Lies were both.
Well, I think. I know this is the whole point. We just talked about February, but Big Little Lies and Legion, I think, are the two things that have stood the test of time as far as everything that we've discussed so far.
Right.
I think both of those two things obviously
100%.
mean the most to us for a lot of reasons. It was Big Little Lies was one of our favorite shows at the end of the summer when we sort of talked about what we've done so far. Legion is a show that we cover on our own. We were just talking about gearing up for season 2. So
it also sort of set the bar and sort of challenged the status quo of everything that we knew, honestly, in general, of superhero genre. Whether it be movies or television, by just being so daring and different. That show really, really executed well.
Yeah. TV is a clear winner.
Right.
Music for March. We had, from first to last, we had Alt J, Drake, More Life Preview. You did the More Life Preview. And let's see, what else? Kendrick Lamar and Radiohead 10 and 20 years ago. So those are the things that kind of popped up for us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember exactly when the Kendrick Lamar album came out. If I had to guess, this was like the release of maybe a preview track of his. And
which one? Blonde, was that first?
No, Blonde was by Frank Ocean. This would be Damn. His album Damn came out this year. But leading up to that album, he released a preview track that was kind of nothing. Then he released Humble, and then immediately after releasing Humble, he released Damn.
It was released in April, the album.
Okay, so we'll wait for that. The More Life preview, obviously, we'll come to that in a minute. From First to Last, literally came and went. We still haven't even seen any payoff of that. There's no weight here. I think there's a lot of anticipation, I think, is the big thing about this. People knew More Life was coming. They thought it was coming late 2016 as an answer to Views. And again, we'll talk more about that in a minute. But Kendrick Lamar, this preview and this anticipation, especially coming off of every accolade that he's ever gotten, I think the buzz around music in this month is sort of what excites me.
So we're waiting on Kendrick, or is that?
We're definitely waiting on Kendrick to break down the impact and everything. But this is more about the buzz around things for me.
When it comes to movies, we reviewed Logan. We saw Bright for the first time. We saw Baby Driver for the first time, which again, that's not really that story with The Matrix being rebooted, with a ton of stories about reboots far.
When did Get Out come out? Because
that would have been February-ish.
Is that this month that we're talking about?
Yeah. No, we're talking about March, but Get Out definitely deserves a mention for sure.
Right. Still not enough to tackle Big Little Lies and Legion.
I don't know if you didn't see it till like around Halloween time, so later. I don't know if we had really covered it that much, but yeah, with movies, Logan being up there with Get Out as far as movies we think will be in our top list of the year. A lot of Justice League. It was a lot of movie news at this point, but I think Logan really stands out on its own compared to everything else that we have here. That's pretty much it with movies.
Yeah, movies. I was still waiting for things to come out. I saw Logan in the theaters, absolutely loved it. Was my number one for a really, really long time this year, and I was just so blown away and so moved by that film. And just, I mean, man, if comic book movies aren't as hot, or I'm sorry, they're as hot as they are right now, and for good reason. But when you see something like Logan, a rated R film, Wolverine, one of the biggest comic book characters that exists, I think there's a lot of weight to that movie. And I think that's a movie that people have constantly referenced throughout the entire year.
I agree. When it comes to TV, though, it's not good. Iron Fist. We talked about YouTube TV, which is pretty cool. Still hasn't come to our area. But Iron Fist, we talked about The Leftovers. When did that come out? Did that come out?
That was like in the summer.
That was after Legion. Yeah.
Yeah, Leftovers was probably a
trailer.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's pretty much it. It was just Iron Fist, essentially. And it was such a disappointing show. And we got him again, and The Defenders, and it wasn't that great. So significance, I don't know. I mean, there's some there, but it's not a positive reaction.
Yeah, there's some buzz to be generated around that. I think from what I remember early in the year with television is we were kind of waiting, because I remember when we were working with TV Time, we were very curious about what we were going to cover next, and there was a pretty big gap in what that was actually going to be. I think for me, movies has got to be the winner just because of Logan and people being so high on Logan.
It's funny. March doesn't really seem to be that big of a, looking back on it. I mean, I remember when it came to movies, I remember that was also the month that like Power Rangers came out.
Yeah.
And that's really the time when, the summer season has started to kind of expand into that. And I know it's kind of like few and far between as far as like maybe there's two big blockbusters that come out in like March and April, and it's not until May that it really gears up. But we are seeing some of those bigger movies come out in March, and Logan was, I think, everything that we needed it to be and wanted it to be. So it was incredible. And obviously, when it comes to superhero stuff, obviously better than Iron Fist. So
far, just keeping tally, we've got a winner for music, movies, and television.
That's right.
Which is interesting and fascinating. Although I would say that both Legion and Big Little Lies on their own could have won the month. On a, if they were released in separate months, you could make an argument for either of those shows.
Definitely
winning a month.
Moving into April, when it came to music, we talked about Warped Tour, but I don't remember the significance of it. I think we just talked about it in general.
I think we talked about the lineup, and that's sort of
talking about our experiences and stuff like that.
I brought you into the conversation, like, what do you think about all these bands and whatnot? Now it's dead, so that's a negative for
Future Islands. You talked about your favorite concert stories. I don't remember if that was tied to seeing Touche Amore.
Maybe.
That's pretty much it. We had a summer preview. So it was pretty much just like Future Islands and Warped Tour was all that we really did with music that month.
Yeah, that seems like a relatively light month. At some point in there, in that window of everything coming out, Sampha had released his album, I believe, which not only was I super, super high on, I reviewed that album and just gave it a really glowing review, and it'll definitely be featured on my album of the year list.
It was in February.
Yeah, I knew it was definitely in one of those months. Still not enough to compete with music or
Big Little Lies.
Yeah, television. But that album, so many people buzzing about it, had a lot of great critical response. Just not only just because it was a good album, but just because of some of the names that he had worked with: Solange Knowles, Drake, Kanye West. Yeah, so I definitely didn't want to miss out on that.
Absolutely. Music just kind of came and went. When it came to movies, we sort of talked about like CinemaCon news, Fate of the Furious. We did a preview, I think maybe a trailer reaction to that. And that movie was one of the lesser talked about movies. I remember people just not covering that at all. I think it was more about, at least for me, I remember hearing more about the drama than I did the actual movie.
Really?
And I don't remember if it broke any records as far as like franchise records or anything. Like I think it's a franchise low, if there is such a thing, because it's still in a crazy amount of money. So, by the way, we started The Leftovers in April.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't mean to jump ahead to TV, by the way, but I just noticed
you're
that.
fine. I mean, all I remember about The Leftovers starting with, we had that gap between seasons, and we had a gap between season 1 of Atlanta and the season 2 that's going to be next year. But all I remember is not really feeling the excitement and the buzz for Leftovers leading into it. I know you probably don't share that sentiment, but
I don't think so.
It's hard. Even as good as I think The Leftovers it's a hard show to make a case for in the pop culture crown discussion, specifically because it didn't resonate with a lot of people. Not that it didn't resonate with a lot of people.
I don't. Well, the only reason why I don't agree, I think it's definitely in both of our top lists, but I think people understood that
it would be a quality discussion. It wouldn't be based on like.
I think we both think that it's a crime that it wasn't.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be the type of show people would just have to take our word for. It wasn't because everybody was talking about how great it was. Yeah. I'm sorry, everybody wasn't talking. It wasn't event television.
Right. This month is insanely thin because we did our summer preview at the end, and
is this
the only
April or March still?
April. So the only things that we really talked about in April when it came to movies was we did CinemaCon, Star Wars Celebration. Star Wars Celebration was a great episode. We spent the entire episode just talking about music, movies, and TV when it came to Star Wars, which was really, really cool. And so CinemaCon and Star Wars, and that was essentially it for movies.
Somewhere in there, we got Han Solo news as well. That
was like midsummer.
Was it really?
Yeah.
That old dudes had been bounced from the film.
Yeah, that was about. Wait, was it?
I thought Star Wars Celebration happened after that.
No, because we thought we were going to get a trailer. Everything was still.
Okay.
It was later in the summer when they announced that they were going to do reshoots or whatever, and then it ended up taking like the entire summer, like 90 days or something like that. So it ended up being just another production.
Yeah.
So TV, we talked about Better Call Saul, which other people stick with and say is quality.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's not quality, but it's forgettable for us. We just forget that show exists. But 13 Reasons Why, Jay.
Yeah, 13 Reasons Why, again, falls under that whole surprise or unsuspecting label that we both put on the year as a whole. That this was a show that I think neither of us were probably ever supposed to enjoy, just because of the teenage drama, high school drama aspect of it. But it was, not only was it a gripping show, this was a show that literally resonated with people, and the heat meter went up so fast on it. I mean, it kind of went viral, as you know, in the same way as Stranger Things would go viral, or the OA went viral last year, where it was something that everybody had to watch. People were constantly talking, have you finished Big Little Lies? Have you finished Big Little Lies?
Right. I think TV clearly wins April.
I will challenge that, because, and I don't know why it's not on our list, but did we cover music? Did we talk about music for the month?
Yeah.
Kendrick Lamar's album came out in April, and so just to put it out there, not my favorite Kendrick Lamar album. In fact, of the 3 that he's put out, it's probably my least favorite, but he met the challenge that I'd always challenged him to do, which was to cross over into mainstream, be more palatable for people. Humble, for me, it was my number 1 song of the year, because it was one of the only songs that I knew really did sort of catch on for the entire year across multiple people. It was a song that you heard people quoting, the bitch be humble.
Yeah.
It was something that people would say. Or,
it was covered by R last night.
Yeah.
They wanted to say the N-word.
Or there's levels to this. It was something I would hear people reference on podcasts. They would say, as Kendrick Lamar would say, there's levels to this game. It's one of the only things that has that. I mean, he even got a Nike shoe deal from off the back of the success of that album. He also had the song Loyalty with Rihanna that had a lot of pop appeal too. And it's a lot of people's number 1 album.
I think Kendrick, when we talk about the year as a whole, right, instead of just April, I think you have more of a case for Kendrick in general. But if we're talking specifically about where we are in April, it's Kendrick versus a show that we adore and covered on a podcast, one of our top shows of the year, and then arguably your top show of the year going up against 13 Reasons Why. Oh, you're making that face like, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. But the other thing I'll say about that, to sort of agree with you, is the fact that I think Kendrick's album, and people are going to be upset with me when I say this, but I think
Evan,
it sort of falls upon deaf ears to a certain extent, for the sole fact that rap and hip hop is a massive, massive music genre. But I think once you exceed a certain level and you're an artist that's been around for so long, one of the reasons it's as big as it is on the back of your Kendrick Lamars, your Drakes, your Kanyes. But it's getting sort of pushed forward by the younger artists, your Lil Yachty's, whoever, a bunch of those people that, amigos to a certain extent. I think it's harder for some of these younger kids to maybe relate to a Kendrick Lamar, a Kanye, or a Drake. Maybe in the same way that when we went through our metalcore phase, maybe people didn't appreciate bands like Slipknot or Metallica quite as much, even though they're massive stars. I can't go see those people in a basement or at a YMCA, And I think Kendrick's album, I think it sort of was hurt by that in a certain way. It's like my mom can go listen to Humble or Loyalty by Kendrick.
I can't remember which song it is, but it's also still playing on like certain commercials. Like there's some commercial, I know you don't have cable, but there's some commercial going on that has DJ Khaled in it, and I can't remember what it's for, but Kendrick plays over top of it.
Interesting.
So it's like even still today, like I still know those songs. I still hear those songs.
But literally, and I talked about this on the music show, Kendrick and Ed Sheeran are the only 2 people I know of the entire year that's had that sort of appeal.
Mm-hmm.
The only 2 artists. And somebody could argue, a Taylor Swift or whatever, but that Taylor Swift album came out, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, but nobody cares about that album anymore. Yeah, I agree with you though. I think TV won that month.
Definitely.
Sorry, Kendrick fans.
We've made it 4 months. Let's take a quick break.
Okay.
And then we'll come back. Huh?
You have to pee-pee?
No, I just figured we'd take a break. We usually take a break about this time. So when we come back, we'll finish out the year. And here's Jay talking about something.
The Sight and Sound YouTube page is the place to be. We always appreciate you checking out all the content we put out here on our podcast feed, but there is a ton of supplementary content in addition to what we talk about here. I'm over there doing album reviews for all the latest album releases. Ryan has you covered with movie news, reactions, and reviews. And from time to time, we even do television reactions in addition to original content that honestly is just meant to entertain you. Go to the description box of this podcast, click the link for the YouTube channel, and subscribe for even more Sight and Sound goodness.
Okay. You having fun?
All right.
You having fun doing this?
I am. This is interesting.
You like this?
It's hard because going by the podcast titles, it's hard to remember certain things.
We're skipping out on some things. I had to pull up my Spotify.
Yeah, I think at the end we'll still have a general topic because there's going to be things that are culturally significant, whether it be like the sexual misconduct and how those things affected Hollywood and artists and things like that we'll just talk about outside of topics that we discussed this year. So
we're sort of just covering the highlights.
Yeah.
Do we get through March?
We're starting May now.
God damn it.
Why?
We missed More Life.
I said More Life in the list.
You did?
Yes.
Let's just run it back real quick. Let's talk about More Life for a second. Drake releasing an album every year, I think, sort of hurts his overall, like, the excitement of a Drake album. Sort of hurts his case for, contributing to the music pop culture crown. However, at this point, I still get excited. I still get hyped, and you never know what's going to come out from a Drake album. Even though this was the views that we deserved, I would say that Views still had a bigger cultural impact than More Life did because people anticipated that album for about 2 years, and they also hated on that album for an entire year. The lead up, he released, I know I'm giving a case for Views, but let's just think about the things that we missed from More Life. He released back to back. You had the whole Meek Mill thing. He released Hotline Bling that year, separate from Views, and even Summer 16 to a certain extent. With this, Fake Love had been out since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
His only other main resonating single from that album was Passion Fruit, which, did you even know that was even really a single on that album? Like,
did I know that was a single?
Yeah. But would you say that it was something that resonated with people the way that even Fake Love did?
Mm-hmm.
Really? You think so?
I mean, I saw a lot of people like reference it on social media and things like that, and it was on the radio.
Fair enough. I think it's definitely one of his less impactful songs, and I think he's another one of those people like Kendrick who's just in this other upper echelon of artists to where people might have a little bit trouble relating to him. But it also has to do with the fact that we're starting to see Drake move away from rap and hip hop. I mean, he's become more of a pop artist now. And I don't know if that's, again, necessarily resonating with people. It doesn't mean that the heat meter is going down on Drake. It's just, I think, like I said, I think it's harder to make a case for him.
Well, this brings up an interesting discussion because we had given Logan sort of the crown of March. And when you want to talk about, actual attention, there's no doubt that Drake and More Life,
along with Kendrick,
is larger. But do you want to give that back to music? Did music take it from movies that month?
If I'm being completely objective about it, I don't think so, man.
You think Logan? I mean, to be fair, Logan has an Oscar push. I don't know if it's going to get nominated, but we're still talking about it.
Especially for that fact. I think, yes, people are talking about Kendrick because they're labeling it as many people's album of the year, especially from a critical point of view.
Right.
But I just don't think it had the weight. I don't think it had the weight. I mean,
and again, he can still come back up.
Oh, 100%.
We're just talking about the month, but
and Some Life was an album that people, or a playlist that people discovered more and more throughout the year. Like they were finding new songs, but I just, like, I would say Migos had a more impactful year culturally than Kendrick and Drake. And that's a hot take. It's just,
and Migos came and went already in our discussion.
Yeah, but I mean, and I mean, they still continue to come back because they're still contributing things. They're in the news a lot, even though I don't really care about them. It's just, yeah, I would still give it to Logan, especially too. And I'll tell you what helps Logan, and we'll talk about it even more. But I think the year was so low for quality movies. Is that a fair statement?
I think the quality of superhero movies is some of the best I've ever seen.
Okay, that's
period.
Fair. But when people were asking for movie recommendations from me, Logan was always the first one that I recommended. You've got to see Logan, and that's how it kept coming up for me. It was the first movie you had to see this year.
Yeah, there's been a couple of those already. Get Out was like that. Split was like that, because I sort of talked about.
See, even Split was a little bit divisive. I mean,
but it got brought up a lot. It did very well at the box office, and a lot of people were talking about it. It spawned. It will spawn another sequel.
I think discussion-wise, you're right.
Yeah.
Quality-wise, I think it could be
Quality-wise, it's still a good movie.
I enjoyed it.
I forget about it sometimes, and it's not going to make my top 10.
Right.
But especially earlier in the year, it's one of the more notable films.
For sure.
But so May significant. I think we kind of ramped up some of our just coverage in general of some of these things. I think we had more episodes in May going on. But we had a summer preview. The summer movie season is it's okay. We're getting to the start of it here. But we talked about, let's go to music first. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip ahead. Of Mice and Men. They came out and back to back.
No of Mice and Men album. They dropped.
It was the video.
3 singles. I think, and one that first single, Unbreakable. I enjoyed that single quite a bit. It was barely off of my top 10 singles of the year list. Would have been an honorable mention.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good. But I was just gonna say, of Mice and Men, we talked about that song, and the very next music episode you did, is Rock Dead. I just think that's funny. It's significant in a way.
Yeah.
We talked about Logic, which is huge, I think, for both of us right now.
Yeah, and the funny thing about all I remember about that discussion was loving the album and being shocked about how low people were on Logic. Which, if you want to talk, it's hilarious. Let's parallel this and Last Jedi for a second, because we were so high on it, but so many other people were low. But commercially, what we were hearing, or what I was hearing from, was a bubble. Because commercially the song did very, very well, and he had the Suicide. What did I say?
Song.
Yeah, the album did very, very well. I believe it was the #1 album, and he had the Suicide Hotline song, which is now being nominated for Grammys, constantly being brought up. A ton of crossover appeal too. He's been on Hot Ones. He was on Gary Vee. He was just he was everywhere this year.
Yeah, definitely. And there's some of that crossover appeal too, because I have no business being a fan of Logic, but I really, really enjoy that album. Right up there with Run the Jewels. It's just kind of funny how those albums I was very taken with, and still very much am. Also, Harry Styles, Jay.
Okay, let's talk about Harry Styles for a second.
Let's do it.
Harry Styles, quality-wise, I think is really high. The surprise factor, obviously a cultural icon, whether you love him or hate him. However, Harry Styles, virtually forgotten the rest of the year. Saw his name pop up on maybe a couple lists.
After Dunkirk.
Virtually. In fact, Dunkirk might have tanked it for him.
Nobody. Why?
Because people hated on Dunkirk. Anyways.
That is not the popular consensus. No way.
Okay, anyways. It was more divisive, I think, than people remember.
That's not how I remember.
So, Harry Styles, like, no recognition from Grammys, which I think is shocking just because of how much they weight the business side of things, the album sales side of things.
He was on Mike Ryan's top album list.
It's just interesting to me, and that might be my perspective, but I would say you can at least give him a little star, a little golden star for at least putting up a fight for this month.
I believe this is about the time that Linkin Park also came out. So the notable artists are Logic, Harry Styles, Linkin Park. We also lost Chris Cornell in May,
right,
as well. So a lot of stuff going on with
a lot to talk about music-wise.
Absolutely. When it came to movies, we previewed Kingsman: The Golden Circle. You weren't even high on that. To this day, neither of us have still seen it.
I haven't even seen it.
Yeah, me neither. I will, though. We previewed Dunkirk, Alien Covenant. Alien Covenant just came and went. That was a divisive... It's a movie that I'm fine with.
Mark Ellis hates that movie.
I know. It's a movie I'm fine with because I think I'm more fine with Prometheus than most people. But at the same time, though, I can look at Alien Covenant and see why it didn't register in any way. Like, it's just hilarious to me that it killed the franchise.
Did it have box office success?
Not really, no.
Do you remember my hot take on our preview, summer preview?
Nobody cares about Alien?
And you were like, what?
Yeah, it's interesting. It killed the franchise because Ridley Scott had like 3 more movies planned. And then he himself earlier this year was like, maybe people are done with Alien.
Ridley Scott is cursed because you had Blade Runner, which was a bomb at the box office. Let's be completely honest about it.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite movie of the year. Spoiler alert. But
yeah. It killed the franchise, and it was not a great start to the summer movie season.
I can't remember. Did you like Blade Runner? I don't remember.
We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. And then, but to end all of this, we had a Ray of Light, and we got Wonder Woman.
The Madonna album. Okay, sorry.
Wonder Woman it's great.
Arguably
Woman, the best superhero movie of the year.
I disagree.
Arguably the best superhero movie of the year?
Here's what I'll say, and I was thinking about
Easily
this.
top 3.
I was thinking about, yes, for sure. I think Wonder Woman is a really, really, really good movie. I do not think it is a great movie. The longer I've sat with it, and in fact, when I was thinking about my year and how many times I got out to the movie theater, if I were to rank my top 3, I would, top 3, I would say Blade Runner, Logan, and Wonder Woman. However, the drop-off between those first 2 and Wonder Woman, in my opinion, is pretty big.
You need to see more movies.
So Wonder Woman, for me, is, again, it's a really, really good movie. I think a lot of it had to do with how much we wanted it to succeed, how much it meant to people, and just how fantastic and likable Gal Gadot was.
Well, I think, yeah. But there's no way that Justice League carries the same weight that Wonder Woman did, and we all thought because of Wonder Woman that Justice League meant that it would be that much of a bigger deal to all of us. So I don't know if that's totally fair. I think Wonder Woman deserves a little bit more credit than that, but Gal Gadot was just a ray of sunshine in that movie. She completely pulled that off because before that movie there were so many naysayers, and I'm not saying I knew she was going to be incredible, but people didn't know And she is our Wonder Woman. She made everyone forget about...
She's the Wonder Woman.
She made everyone forget that people loved Ben Affleck's Batman. Like, because of her, people forgot about how much they liked him in BVS, but also because of his constant news cycle of, people just forgot. And Wonder Woman's pretty much the only thing that we have going for Warner Brothers in DC right now. Because they're not even doing they don't even know if they're going to do another Superman. So it's like Wonder Woman is all they have. And that's why I think that she's on such a high pedestal. But
I agree with all of that. And I think that Wonder Woman alone adds such a massive weight to this discussion, and especially for movies and the pop culture crown.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that there's a little bit of hyperbole involved with how good that movie is. That's just my take, though.
TV, Silicon Valley. Did you just stop watching that show?
No, I watched it.
Oh, okay. T.J. Miller.
I have a take on that I'll put up off here.
Okay. Game of Thrones. This was about the time that it started. Almost. I think this was more of a preview than anything, because I don't think it was quite that early. Maybe it was. The Gifted, Star Trek Discovery.
Gifted's a good show.
How many episodes have you watched?
1. It was a good pilot.
And Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I mean, just for the discussion, I think Twin Peaks in general, as much as I don't really care for the show, I think it was a cultural phenomenon this year.
As it went on, I heard less and less people talk about it. I know it hit huge.
Yeah.
It hit huge. As time went on, there were times that people would bring it up, and I'd say, is that really still on? Because I think
part of it that hurts it is how long the season was. It was like a ridiculous. It was like an old. It was like a 2000 and.
Was it like 20s? 20 episodes?
It was like a 2005 sitcom length, or it was like the second season of Lost. It was like so many episodes.
They still do those episodes, Jeff.
Oh, do they really?
It's just network television. Look at The Flash.
No wonder nobody watches. I will give a little bit of a nod and a pat on the back to Twin Peaks for it being as important as it was, regardless of what I think about it.
I think for one, I forgot to mention Bryson Tiller with music, by the way. I know that makes a whole lot of a difference to you.
Yeah, I mean that was like the Alien Covenant of music for this year.
I think Wonder Woman kicks the shit out of Twin Peaks, but I think the overall winner in May is music by a landslide.
Why is it?
Logic, Harry Styles, Linkin Park, all that stuff came out, and you're only really dealing with Wonder Woman.
I agree with that.
TV was just kind of whatever.
I agree with that.
So I was gonna say it's got to go to music. Let me write all this down.
Okay, you need me to fill airtime right here? I'm concerned about your pause screen on Battlefront right here. I'm afraid that's going to burn a image into your screen. Is that a thing? Is that real?
I've always heard that, but I've also my Xbox is moving around, but I've always heard that, but I've never seen any kind of evidence of that. Not with myself, just with anything.
Well, I can show you at my house. That's how it is on my computer monitor. It goes away
the one that
after
you
a while.
use?
Yeah.
Really?
Like I've had a GarageBand screen up for like 3 days, and I minimized it, and I could still see it sort of in the background.
Oh, so it's recent. It's not like something you've
It's
had
happened
for a
before.
long time that we've never noticed. Oh, okay.
It goes away.
Okay, very good.
I think.
Kind
of like Alien Covenant.
Let's go to June. We started June with an after party, so that's that's kind of telling. We're still kicking it with Leftovers, by the way. The Leftovers ended with a very, very satisfying finale. Does that mean it gets to get brought up again? I think it does in a way.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good topic.
Again, it's another case that I would have with, especially when we end this whole thing and sort of talk big picture with music. it would really be me being like, you should have paid attention to these, even though you might not have even known they existed. And that's sort of how I feel about The Leftovers.
And it was also just the ending of what we think is one of the best shows we've ever seen in our lives.
Yeah, it's definitely a gold star for quality. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'll just stay on TV since we're talking about that. The end of The Leftovers, the Sense8 fan petition. It's nothing. And then Planet of the Apps, which again, that just came and went. We quit watching that. Another after party in June. Glow. I'm gonna put that down on there, even though you don't really. I mean, I still like that show a lot. But I
like
think,
the show.
Well, we're gonna talk about like the surprise sleepers from Netflix because there's a few of those examples.
Yeah.
And Glow is something that I would throw into the mix when it comes to that. And
and Glow is something that I think, one of the most interesting things about Glow wasn't even necessarily just that the show was sort of a hit and it had that crossover appeal and it had the buzz about it that we get from Netflix from time to time, which no one can really explain, like why certain people take to certain things more than others. But I mean, I saw a lot of people, it ignited a flame for like pro wrestling with them. And there were people that were looking into pro wrestling documentaries because of it. And I think there's something to be said for that.
Let's go to we'll go to movies next, and it kind of feels like it's just kind of a lot of new stuff.
It's really what we mainly did with movies on Weekly.
Pretty much.
Yeah, throughout the entire year.
Black Panther trailer, I think, is when that first came out. I feel like that was forever ago. The Mummy was a just complete dud, and if you guys remember, I was a massive champion for that movie
wasn't it one of your most anticipated movies?
It definitely was for the summers. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, that trailer kicked me in the ass when that came out.
Right.
I freaked out when I saw that trailer. It was so cool. Still haven't seen it. There's no point.
Yeah.
Like I might one day because I'm curious, because people are so down on that movie and I just don't know what it could be. If anything, it's just some fun action stuff, right? With some silly monsters. Apparently not.
And we're in June, right?
Yeah.
I think halfway through, this is a good time to bring up one of the battles that I'm having the most with this whole discussion, or that's the most interesting, is between music and movies, for the simple fact that movies clearly, in my opinion, has more resonance, I think, with the news. Like, we just didn't get music news like this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I would check every single day on so many sites to find something that was big enough to talk about. Do you remember John Mayer's album dropped this year, and I said, that's not big enough for us to talk about because nobody gives a shit. We ended up having some sort of discussion about it.
We talked about it in January.
Right.
Whether it was because that was when that first little bit was leaked or dropped, right?
Right. And it's just like, with movies, it's sort of the opposite. I feel like there's so much news to talk about, which is sort of what lifts it a little bit.
Right. I agree. The Mummy, though, I think that's very telling as far as how summer went for me anyway, about how I'd get really excited for something and then it just kind of would go away. Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy was also like that, and I don't know if that was mentioned on our podcast, but it definitely happened at about this time.
Go back and watch my trailer reaction for Guardians of the Galaxy. I called it not being good before
it's true.
It even came out.
You did.
One of my most proud moments of the year.
This is also the time when I spoke about my movie fandom rut. This is when that episode went out, and I was really down. And that rut's kind of been consistent for the rest of the year.
I cannot wait to hear your ranking for this list.
Really?
Yeah.
I still have a lot
We could be
movies
the
to
exact
watch.
same or very different. There's only 3 options. So it's really
I was going to say, it's going to be very different no matter what. Lord and Miller were fired from Han Solo.
Huge news.
Yes.
Huge news that shook so much.
It's significant, but it's not good.
Let me ask you this question.
It's not good.
Let me ask you this question. In this sort of side conversation, specifically with movies, who holds the movie crown for news? Is it Star Wars or is it DC? That's a fascinating conversation.
It's DC.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's only really been that, but you got to think the Trevorrow firing, the JJ hiring were massive.
I know, but with DC though, it's always something. It's just always something, no matter what.
You think that's part of their business model?
Star Wars has a few that are huge headline news because they are Star Wars.
Right.
Well, maybe that's not fair. It's more than just being Star Wars when you fire your directors more than halfway through the production and bring in Ron Howard. But DC had a similar situation with that. So,
yeah.
I mean, different circumstances, obviously, but the result was essentially the same.
When did Suicide Squad come out? Was that last year?
That was last August.
I couldn't remember. Never seen it.
It's terrible. So, I think DC wins that.
Okay.
It's smaller stories, and it's monotonous.
Definitely more consistent.
It's monotonous, smaller stories, but it just kind of keeps the engine running.
Yeah.
So, that's how I view it. But it's not good either way. There's some good stuff with Star Wars. I mean,
yeah, but
we'll talk about The Last Jedi.
Depending on what type of pop culture
fan. Well, I guess there's Wonder Woman.
Depending on what type of pop culture fan you are, you could thrive on that drama. So that's what makes it so interesting to talk about.
That's true. But would you crown the pop culture crown to movies because so much bullshit happened? No.
Well, the crowning comes from a combination of discussion, buzz, heat meter, and quality.
Well, none of those involve shitty movie news. Well, shitty movie news,
right.
Yeah. So I think there was more going on with movies than TV, but it was pretty much all negative. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, if I'm being reasonable, did fine at the box office.
Right.
And a lot of people enjoy that film, to be totally fair. But
I think,
I mean, I'm looking at a list. I wrote down Mummy, Guardians, Movie Phantom Rut, and Han Solo. I mean, I'm looking at 4 negatives for me personally.
I mean,
so,
I think you could honestly say that Guardians of the Galaxy might have been the most underwhelming, definitely quality-wise, superhero movie of the year, and it was probably overshadowed by every other thing that came out.
I think, I definitely agree with that. Like when I was working on the top superhero movie list and I was like ranking the MCU, and I had Guardians of the Galaxy 2 towards the bottom, and there wasn't a whole lot of contesting that.
I'm not even talking about quality. I mean, just like...
But no, I'm with you.
Right.
Like, I think when you put it up against Spider-Man and Ragnarok, I think it's the third best Marvel movie. I think most people would agree with that.
Even Justice League, it's a little bit more forgettable. I think Guardians is a better film than Justice League, in my opinion. But Justice League at least was more memorable because 1, it's Justice League, 2, the characters that were in it, and 3, just because of the tumultuous ride that you go on with DC
right.
in general.
Right. Let's get to music. How I fell out of love with music was your first music episode. Okay, we talked about the 100th. You know that album Rave?
You know what's funny about that album? Here's what's hilarious about more than any album that we've talked about this year, that's the one that people come back to the most on our YouTube, maybe not necessarily on our YouTube channel, but I've seen more people come back to that album and discover that band for the first time just because of their style shift, which is interesting to me. And it was an album that was on a few lists as well.
What about Lord's Melodrama? What's going on there?
Lorde had her comeback this year, which, you know, I think she picked a perfect year to do it because she is a massive star and she took a lot of time off. And I think if she would have come out last year against Beyonce and Kanye and Radiohead and all those major artists, she could have easily been swept under the rug. This was a great year for Lorde. You know, I'm not a massive fan of hers, but she is definitely somebody that has resonated and had some crossover appeal. That Green Light song was a massive song. Yeah, I think she's a good nod. Maybe not necessarily for me, but
Jay-Z's 444. Is that making it on people's lists?
Oh, absolutely.
I was gonna say,
not me personally.
Right.
Nominated for multiple Grammys.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Jay-Z's making some, and it takes a lot for me to say this, making some fantastic decisions with Tidal. In fact, of the three major streaming services, he's maybe doing the most interesting things. And this is a side thing. Did you know that he essentially bought a podcast?
No.
There's a podcast called Rap Radar that used to be distributed like every other podcast. They do interviews with big rappers. He said, you are exclusively on Tidal now.
Oh, really?
And the
okay.
production,
maybe I did know that.
The production quality for their video podcasts are incredible. And, you know, just a lot of exclusive content that he's putting out there that I subscribed to Tidal for a month just to watch something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, I think, you know, he has the amount of money alone to make his album have a heat meter at all. I mean, just the way he distributes his stuff. Yeah, I think those are, he and Lord both being in that month are huge, huge weights for that month towards music.
I was gonna say I'm looking at it. I can see music winning, but I just don't think movies has any chance here. So it came down to TV and music, and I'm even willing to say that, like with Glow and just bringing up the Leftovers finale, that both of those are kind of stretching and reaching. So I'm fine with music winning this.
Right. The other the one thing I will say in the negative department of 444 is it was not a mainstream album. It was not easily palatable to the wider audience of pop culture, but just in general, Jay-Z's such a big artist that he definitely works in favor.
So you're giving it to music as well?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right. Keep talking.
What are you doing there? You look like you're about to hold the microphone with your head or something.
Well, I'm trying to write things down, and I couldn't. I had to hold the notebook, so I had to.
Should have brought my microphone stands.
You didn't have to do that. It's fine. We're gonna make it work here.
Should you do speak to text or whatever?
No. That's terrible. When you do that, it's awful.
I know. I agree.
I can tell when you do it. You don't even have to tell me.
Yeah. Speak to podcast.
Yeah. In July, we did our top 5s of 2017 so far. That included favorite albums of 2017. Kanye West left Tidal, Jay. And
mentioning anything with Kanye in 2017 isn't going to move the needle at all. I hate to say it, but he's just essentially he's taken a hiatus from the year.
I might jump around a little bit. Game of Thrones started on television, so there's.
I mean, I think that's an automatic win, just right there. That's
you
both,
just want to go on and give.
That's both in quality and just. I mean, from everything. Here's the crazy thing to think about. From every single thing we've talked about for the entirety of this year so far, nothing is bigger than Game of Thrones. Do you agree with that statement?
Probably. Yeah.
Again, it's for quality.
Star Wars.
Okay, but we didn't have a movie yet.
Yeah.
So I think, and yes, I do agree with you. I agree. More life. No, I'm just kidding.
I think Star Wars is definitely bigger than Thrones.
And see, here's where I think the medium of television works in its favor, because you have, what was it, 8 episodes?
7 or 8.
7 weeks
8
of discussion and just and think about the season.
It was a great time.
Think about the season that we got, where it's just, I mean, action packed from front to back. I know some people didn't enjoy it.
So similar reactions to Star Wars. It's just it was
definitely similar reactions,
very similar,
but very different. What we actually got,
betrayal to what the fans expected.
I know. I mean, Game of Thrones. This season of Game of Thrones felt more like The Force Awakens than it did The Last Jedi, just because of how, pedal to the metal, fast paced, action packed it was. It was every single episode was essentially a climax of a movie.
Yeah, and it was great. It was a great time.
Those that did love it were literally just jizzing constantly. All 7 weeks, just jizz everywhere.
Movies did pretty well for itself in July too, because we had Comic-Con and D23. A lot of cons.
I know we got a movie every week with Game of Thrones.
Dunkirk Dunkirk came out. And
never heard of it.
I think that's still it's a lot of people's one of their favorite movies of the year. For me personally, it's probably maybe my least favorite Nolan film. One of my least favorite Nolan films. Right. And I recognize that it's well made or whatever, but it just didn't emotionally, it's story-wise connect with me. But it's still worth mentioning, too, because by no stretch of the imagination does this deserve to be lumped with Baywatch in terms of movies that really like made a difference this summer. Because it definitely did.
I feel like people...
I'm giving it credit for that.
I feel like people making a case for Dunkirk having any weight in the pop culture crown would be like me saying Bon Iver has weight.
Well,
like it's a technical achievement.
I want to make sure that we bring up when there is a good summer movie.
Definitely.
Because we've gone a couple times without a really big notable movie being brought up.
And I love Nolan, and I think there's something to be said the fact that any Nolan film that comes out has the sort of vibrations that any other tentpole movie could have. It's something that people look forward to without having, DC, Star Wars, Marvel, whatever attached to it.
Spider-Man: Homecoming was also in that group. I forgot all about that.
Massive lead up to that film.
Arguably, well, for me, the best Marvel movie of the year. But I think
it's my most anticipated film of the year.
Yeah, a lot of people were satisfied with that.
One of my most forgettable movies this year.
Snowfall came out. How many episodes did you make it? I think I made it one or two.
I bought that show. I bought it on iTunes, and I haven't finished it. But when I did watch it, I thought it was fantastic. And you just reminded me that I need to continue watching it.
I thought it was okay. It's kind of forgettable, but I think it comes down to I don't think we lost Chester.
Yes,
in July, and Kanye was a no-show.
Kanye in general.
It comes down to movies and TV, and I think this is one of our most interesting debates. So again, as a refresher, we got some good summer movies in July, and we also got a lot of Comic-Con, a lot of D23, a lot of fun news, and it's going up against Game of Thrones and Emmy noms. We had our nominations that year, so we were already talking about sort of award season for television. Oh, by the way, Tyler the Creator. Do I need to bring up Tyler the Creator? I probably do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff with Tyler this year in the sense where he dropped an incredible album, sort of hitching his wagon on the success of Frank Ocean as well. Also, just a lot of speculation about that album, what it's about. Did he come out of the closet on the album? Did he not? What all of that? But listen, man, we can debate all you want, but
you don't think anything's bigger than Thrones?
I'm sorry. Listen, there are people who don't give a shit about everything we've talked about so far this year that will go out of their way to watch Game of Thrones. I usually judge this based on...
I'm fine with it.
I know, but I want to argue with you. I usually base a lot of this stuff and going outside of the bubble based on how many people come up to me at my day job to talk about this stuff.
It's the biggest show on television. And Dunkirk was not the biggest movie of the year.
And Spider-Man, I think, is the only thing that I think could possibly challenge Game of Thrones this month. But it just doesn't. It just doesn't.
Comic-Con's great though. It's a lot of fun
Comic-Con
it's a lot of fun to be a movie fan, but it also, to be fair, it also factors into television. D20 or Comic-Con does do a lot of television. So.
It does, and it's so inside the bubble.
I'm gonna say, I'm with you. I'm going with you as far as TV is the winner for July. And what else happened real quick? Oh, I had to mention this. I don't remember if it was previews or what, but our last episode of Weekly in July was Room 104, which is a fun show. Dark Tower, which was, and August Burns Red.
All right, let's move on. None of those contribute to anything. And to any August Burns Red lovers out there, let me just say this. Throwing August Burns Red into this equation is basically like presenting me with a rotten goose. Nobody wants to eat it to begin with, and it's already rotten. All right, metalcore in general in this whole discussion holds literally no weight unless your name is Bring Me the Horizon.
Architects.
Doomsday is a fantastic song.
Plotting You. One of my most played songs of the year.
Yeah. Nobody cares about that band, though.
That's true.
Luke Jaggers. What? What did you say?
I know the lead singer.
I can text him right now. My friend said that no one cares about your band.
We in August with TV, we previewed Robot and also got The Defenders. So we had 2 TV topics.
As forgettable as The Defenders was,
I mean, it was an event, but I don't think it was lasting, and it's not to the size of Stranger Things by any means.
I was about to say that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it when it comes up, but I think the heat meter was more warm for Punisher, and it had a more lasting appeal than Defenders.
My sister just finished Punisher, and she loved it.
Really?
She loved the Punisher.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
There's not a lot going on in August at all, so I have no idea what I'm going to do. Actually, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up movies.
When did it come out? Did we just skip
That was September.
It?
No, it was September. I'm going to pull up movies in August 2017 because I know that Apes came out, and Apes was, I think, a great conclusion to that trilogy, or to that trilogy and franchise. But there's not a whole lot. Detroit came out, and I know that they still screen that movie a lot. I still haven't seen it, and I know that they're trying to get it into some Oscar contention. So I think that's worthy of being brought up. But other than that, there's not. I mean, that's when Dark Tower came out, so there's just not a lot going on there. But I think, did Wind River come out in August? I think it did. Logan Lucky was interesting. Shot Caller, I might be reaching, but I need to look up when Wind River came out real quick.
Yeah, I don't know if any of those movies.
Well, Wind River is fantastic.
Yeah, no, I'm not discounting their quality. It's, again, I think some of these movies are sort of in that same conversation with music where it's like I can sit here and tell you about all these albums that were great that came out that nobody's just not, they're just not going to have any sort of connection with.
I think Apes and Wind River are certainly notable to bring up when it comes to movies, because not only was Apes a great conclusion to a trilogy, it looks fantastic. It's one of the best summer movies that we got. Probably going to be on my top 10 list. Wind River, same for that. It was just fantastic.
And I think this is an interesting time to sort of bring up, because we've gotten through most of the year. I think this is an interesting time to bring up the fact that, listen, we know that Weekly is our biggest show, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this right now are probably thinking to themselves, I'm a massive movie fan. How dare you, not give Wind River and whatnot the credit that it deserves. And listen, I get it. We both get it. That's why Weekly is the top of the pile, skimming the surface type of show. And that's what we're discussing right now. If you want your deep dive discussions, that's when you go to Sight and Sound Movies, Sight and Sound Music, where we talk about the stuff that just doesn't necessarily appeal to the greater landscape.
This is a very difficult month, because when it comes to music, I'm looking at Brand New as a topic.
What month are we on?
August.
Okay.
I'm looking at Brand New as a topic, which is kind of gross. Taylor Swift,
also
which I think is kind of gross. And we previewed Robot. The Defenders is kind of nothing. So, I mean, I'm in favor of movies winning. Not only do I think it just doesn't have a whole lot of competition, but because there's just 2 standout movies in there. And I agree. You can look at releases that came out in August, maybe find a couple as well, but I mean, that's just my...
Here, let me take to my Spotify here. I think there is a lot of buzz and a lot of interest around Brand New, regardless of what we think about them today. I think you, even if I were to say, Brand New could easily have won the month on its own, in the greater discussion of the pop culture crown, you could just as easily erase that because of the negativity towards the band. But it was a 1 album. It was a surprise album.
Yeah.
Even their fans didn't even really know if it was going to, I guess, exist or not. Let me go through some of the stuff that I might have put on for August, because I remember the fall being a pretty crazy month for music.
That's fine. We talked about the Defenders twice, so that must have been a preview and a review. And I know that you definitely weren't high on it to preview, but neither of us were particular. I mean, I was fine with it. It was more about the fact that as time went on, I just cared less and less about it, and realized that it truly isn't the Avengers for television, in my opinion. And what are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at, I was about to try to make an argument for music.
Death Note?
For music, and I guarantee you 90% of people listening to this right now have no idea any of the bands. And again, that goes back to the conversation. You want to talk about Citizen? Do you want to talk about the Bar Brothers? Do you want to talk about Robert Plant is the most recognizable name, and he's like 90 years old.
This just got more interesting because I messed up the release date for Apes, and it was in July.
Yeah.
So it's Wind River versus Taylor Swift versus the Defenders.
Listen, I'm fine. The Taylor Swift album didn't come out, so I think I'm fine giving it to movies, although I would say it's probably one of the most contentious months.
It's just hard to figure
Nothing's really
out.
sticking out.
Yeah, I think we can all agree with that. But we had to have a winner. So Death Note it is. When it comes to television, we had American Horror Story Cult. That just was a whole bunch of nothing. We talked about The Deuce, and that just kind of got away from us.
I didn't think it was good.
I liked it. I don't know why I didn't finish it. It's a little long-winded, that first episode, but I liked it.
I just didn't think I needed that show in my life. Sorry. James Franco was definitely the least interesting thing he did this year.
Yeah, but he had a good year though.
Hell yeah.
If you want to put it in that perspective.
Still haven't seen The Disaster Artist. What a bummer.
It's good. I'm gonna put Franco and The Deuce down in general, but we can just take that as you will. It might go away. American Horror Story Cult. I'm not gonna do that. We did talk about Emmys. It was a fun Emmys. I remember I DVR'd it, and when I got home, it didn't record, so I had to watch Collider's result video.
There you go. I remember
that because so it was just all of it was spoiled for me, and I like watching award shows. I just like seeing pretty people interact. Jay,
I think I'm gonna skip out on the Grammys this year.
Are you?
Yeah.
Didn't you say that last year?
No, because Justin Vernon was there from Bon Iver.
I think we did our top 5 movies, albums, and shows. Was that that's got to be of the summer, or maybe it was from all year. I don't know.
The year so far?
I don't know. What's going on. Man, September. Not a lot was going on there either.
It's my birthday month.
But we had It when it came to movies, and it's the highest grossing
cultural phenomenon
horror movie. I mean, what happened with It should have happened a million times over the summer.
Right.
And it didn't. It was massive.
Yeah.
Massive. Oh my goodness.
It alone had more crossover appeal in the pop culture landscape than anything I've talked about with music so far.
Yeah. It might have been one of the biggest. It's definitely the biggest hit of movies, with the exception of like Star Wars, I think, in terms of budget, profit, and all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
Success. This is also when we found out JJ was directing episode 9 after the Trevorrow exit, so it's
massive
kind of
news.
Good news comes with bad news, though, at least in my opinion.
Remember when everybody hated that idea, and now they are excited about it?
Just like people are now giving Force Awakens more credit than they were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Colin Trevorrow. And then we talked about the Hellboy, which was cool. Tomb Raider trailer, which was cool, and reviewed Wind River. But that's pretty much the extent of it when it comes to movies. With artists. When music start, we talked about September music releases. Wasn't there a lot of?
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff coming out in the rest of the year, and a lot did come out.
Yeah, and then we talked about Architects.
Yeah, Doomsday. I mean, again, as good as that song is, and as big as that band is, and as important as that song was for the music genre, again, I mean, it's still like kicking a can at the Great Wall of China. It's just. It still means nothing.
I'm kind of giving it to movies. I just think
it alone, like I said, it alone is putting a foot down just on music in general, because nothing. If I categorize surprises in music as being the thing, you could categorize it as a surprise, but it was so massively taken in by so many people. I mean, I knew people, again, this is sort of goes along with the Game of Thrones thing. I knew people at my day job that were coming in and talking to me about it, and that should have just never happened in a million years. And right. I loved it. I love the movie. I think it's great.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into some movies. When's that? Let's get into October. Right away. Blade Runner 2049.
My favorite movie of the year, massive amount of shock, and I was impressed with it. Man, I can't, like that, just thinking about that movie, it just like moves me in a weird way that art and creativity does. It was definitely the Star Wars that we deserved this year.
What?
I'm joking. It's definitely a better movie than Star Wars. The Last Jedi. Of course. I mean, come at me. Am I wrong?
Mr. Robot started in October, and that ended up just being a great
Mr.
surprise.
Robot was a great show.
I haven't finished it.
However, Mr. Robot might as well be Architects in this discussion too. As much as I hate to say it. More people should be watching the show.
Yeah.
They're not. I don't think it's getting leftovers.
It's not landing.
It's getting leftovers where I don't think it's getting the recognition it deserves just because people aren't watching it.
But you know what helps the TV argument here?
The fact that it got picked up for another season.
Did it really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Robot?
That's great.
Yeah. They've already Sam Esmail's already talking about what's going to happen in the next season.
There's already a TV juggernaut.
Shut the fuck up.
There's already a TV juggernaut. Already another, excuse me. And this is stepping on the throat of Blade Runner 2049.
Oh boy.
Stranger Things 2.
One of the further away we get from it, one of my more forgettable shows of the year.
What?
Yeah.
Well,
that's my hot take.
Regardless of all of that, we're looking at, like, in the way that Game of Thrones just destroyed everything. Stranger Things 2, there's no argument. Destroyed everything. And I know that Blade Runner might be a personal thing, but it's one of the biggest bombs of the year.
From a critical perspective, of course, the crossover, and maybe in the greater discussion, Blade Runner will have some weight, maybe not towards television, but the thing that I will say about Stranger Things, I really enjoyed the season. It has been a little bit more forgettable for me personally, and the lasting appeal wasn't as long as season 1. I don't really hear many people talking about it as much as I did with season 2. It wasn't something that everybody had to watch.
I mean, I think that it's probably the last really big show. I mean, there have been shows that have come out like Mindhunter on Netflix. Sure. That's one of Netflix's more bigger shows of the year as well. But I think if you ask the casual person that doesn't know or care about Mr. Robot, the last thing that's been on TV this year is Stranger Things 2.
It's still one of the biggest TV shows for sure.
So I don't know if saying it's forgettable is fair, because I think a lot of people would be like, that's the last great thing that I saw.
I'm going to compare Stranger Things to something that's only going to help the TV discussion overall, but Stranger Things is lacking what, in my opinion, Master of None has for it. Master of None, the more the year goes on, I'm starting to see more people discovering the season. I'm starting to see people recommend it to people even more. And it's something that we forgot to mention. But
Netflix has a lot of those sleepers, though, like Atypical.
Yeah.
Atypical popped up this year as well. And the OA, I think that was December of last year.
It was.
But it's still a great example of a sleeper when it comes to Netflix.
It was around this time. Maybe we'll get season 2 next week.
It was just announced that they start filming at the beginning of 2018.
Okay.
So we might get it by the end of 2018. Still a decent wait. But yeah. Not a lot going on with music. I mean, we talked about Apple Music. The Andy Signore stuff came up. And the other reason why I bring that up is because it involved movie fandom, and it was also the first domino when it came to it from our perspective. The common person doesn't know who Andy Signore was, but for us,
I think the Weinstein
Andy Signore,
was first. Yeah.
and then no, Weinstein was not first. Weinstein came after. It was like days after.
No, the Weinstein stuff was announced on an episode of Movie Talk, and then it literally followed the day right after that.
Because they were talking about it, and that broke as they were talking about Weinstein. You're absolutely right. You're right. But
sometimes I don't have CT.
We'll definitely come back to that. Eminem, we talked about it. We're kind of getting into conversations that we just had. It feels like we talked about Eminem and sort of what I think it was about that rant towards Trump, and that would have been at the Grammys, right?
I don't know if it was that specifically or if
I think it was.
Yeah, I guess it was
the Trump thing.
Yeah, Trump was sort of the first thing that happened with him. And listen, I mean, obviously Eminem's a massive name, but his entire story this year has been the reclamation of his relevance.
Yeah.
And I think if that's what you're going to lead off with by giving weight in the pop culture crown discussion, that's probably not the best thing. It's just like, I'm trying to be more relevant, so that means music is more relevant, right? The answer is no.
Right.
And in fact, he squandered that because his album is trash.
Not a whole lot going on with music. Like we said, we talked about We Came as Romans, Converge, and Thor Ragnarok are the last two things in October. Mainly because I forgot to look at the last. So we have Converge for music and Thor Ragnarok in movies. I still see Stranger Things 2 as another Game of Thrones. I think it
I agree.
Wins.
I agree. I think it has too much of a pull even over Thor Ragnarok, which is a movie I think is resonating a little bit longer than I would have thought it would have, but you still can't take away the cultural impact that just Stranger Things dropping in general has.
I was gonna say that it's just massive. It's
a big boulder to fall
That was one TV show,
the water.
One of like 2 TV shows that had Super Bowl commercial. So it obviously has a massive appeal.
Legion being the other one.
That's right. We talked about Linkin Park and harassment, but that was on an after party. But I figured that
was the Chester Memorial thing that happened.
Right.
Didn't really have any, I don't think, cultural significance. I mean, I think his death obviously was.
Well, I mean, it depends on because technically you can consider that a negative. Like that's not what we want to give the pop culture crown to when you have stuff like that, because it's just.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know.
It's not a great way to have heat.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. I think anytime something like that happens, it sort of makes you pay closer attention to wherever it falls. Like, for instance, the sexual harassment stuff keeps your mind on wherever it is. Let's just say it's on movies. Maybe you're thinking about movies more than you typically would. I don't know. I don't know. That's a weird sort of perspective to have.
Warped Tour, not good.
Yeah, not good. I made that video trying to spin it into a positive, and I think ultimately it will be a positive that Warped Tour is going away. That's just my personal take. But, anything – listen, I think this was a fantastic year for rock music. I think it was something that I wanted to focus on, and I got a lot of good things out of it. But the heat meter is still sitting on ice cold. It doesn't matter if that is not a a commentary on how much critical favor has in the pop culture discussion, then I don't know what is. You can have a million great things come out, but if nobody gives a shit about them, it doesn't mean anything.
I think this is where the conversation will have to start to shift.
Right.
For one, because November is a very hard month to gauge because there's just not a whole lot going on. It's a lot of bad, really. The only thing that really sticks out to me is that, yeah, it's sort of the start of the Oscar movie season, if you will. But again, it's very spread thin. And we got The Punisher on Netflix. But other than that, there's just not a whole lot of notable things. And we also can't do December, really, because I think pop culture-wise it's done, but we're not done with it yet. But obviously, Star Wars is sort of
it's still going on.
It's running December. Like, what else is going on?
Well, let me ask you this question. I think by now we have enough to sort of make a ranking.
There's certainly enough to make a ranking. I mean, there's actual results, but we also just have to sort of talk about where we were in terms of our particular fandom and just sort of the broad topics.
Yeah, let me ask you this. So I want to hear your take the year as a whole from all three: music, movies, and television. And then you can sort of place them if you want to. I'll
start with movies first. And I feel like you've heard me talk about it before. It hasn't really been that fun to be a movie fan for the first time in a few years. And it's more than just having like sort of, at least for me, I mean, nothing has really been like extremely impressive. Wonder Woman sticks out, Blade Runner sticks out, Logan sticks out. I feel like there's only been one great movie a month, maybe. Like if you were to average it out. And I'm also not done. I mean, to be fair, I have a lot of movies left to watch when it comes to considering. But most of it's Oscar stuff, and that's the stuff that's kind of relatively the same all year. But like the summer movie season doesn't always have just a ton of stinkers. And there's also movies we forgot to mention, like Baby Driver. But even that, though, like it was a fun movie. But as time goes on, and even with like the Kevin Spacey stuff, that's sort of tainted it a bit.
Right.
And moving into like what it meant to be a movie fan in general, it was exhausting. It was tiring when it came to the redundancy of the movie news, particularly like with DC stuff and like even the Star Wars stuff. I mean, there was definitely good, but there was also bad, and it was exhausting and tiring. And the movies were few and far between as far as the movies that really stood out to me. And then you add the sexual harassment thing, and you can go into it because a lot of it involves TV as well. It's a Hollywood thing as a whole, not just about movies. But
I'm sure some of it did trickle down into music as well.
Yeah, with Brand New and
yeah.
So it's sort of all over the place. But when you consider like Harvey Weinstein and Bryan Singer and like Andy Signore, even though that's not, just movies weren't that fun this year.
I get that.
It wasn't always fun. So it just kind of really disappointed me in that way. But again, like the movies that I really like Logan and Wonder Woman and all those. So I get that. When it comes to television, I feel like there, especially early on in the year, we saw shows that were like, we're going to remember this. This is probably going to be one of our favorite shows for the remainder of the year.
How many times did you say that?
A lot.
Yeah.
And that list kept building.
Yeah.
That list kept building throughout the year.
Sort of petered out towards the end.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but when it comes to like movies and television, it's... hold on. No, let me ask you. Of the three, which one do you think we have a habit of listening to or viewing with our taste already in mind? And so what's the risk level when it comes to movies? Like, for example, more than likely, if I know that the movie's going to be shit, or if most people think it's going to be shit, I don't even give myself to it so I'm not judging all of those bad movies. So what's the risk level? Is it higher for music because artists can put out things that are irrelevant? They can put out things that don't live up to other things they put out? Or is it on TV? Or is it easier to avoid bad stuff on TV? Like, what do you get? What I'm asking?
I think music is an interesting one just because you can have somebody like an Eminem who isn't relevant, who doesn't necessarily have a track record recently of good stuff, but his name is so big that you can still talk about it. Same Taylor Swift. We've talked about her a few times this year. We don't like Taylor Swift. I think with movies, you take DC, for instance, almost with the exception of Wonder Woman, even in some certain Wonder Woman discussions leading up to it, the conversation was a little bit negative. However, what I will say, for me, it's always more difficult to pick a music topic because where music in general is so disposable, it's so difficult for me to imagine we can hold everybody's attention with music because it's always so dependent on taste. I think, I have a really diverse taste in music, so it makes it it makes it easier for me because I can talk about whatever, but I know almost every single music topic that comes up, we're going to be losing some people for the discussion, including you from time to time, which is fine.
It's true.
Yeah.
Music, I mean, look, I think it might just be because of this podcast in general,
right?
But it's helping me gain a new love for music, and I'm still like, it's again few and far between, but I'm sort of appreciating it more again in a way that I used to not.
Yeah.
If you had asked me a couple years ago where I felt with music, I would have been annoyed with it. I still say that I hate music, but mainly as a joke. But I mean, the one I know which one I feel the most passionate about here.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, if I start out with music, it's the most difficult one to sort of come to terms with because I think the only thing that can challenge TV quality-wise is music, because there have been so many fantastic albums that have come out this year. However, like I've said throughout this whole episode, I could name off many of them, and so many people will have only heard these people for the first time, their names come out of my mouth, and it just doesn't translate well. When we started this podcast, one of the whole reasons that I wanted to do a podcast that talked about the hot topics every single week was because in 2016, it was such a massive year for music. We talked off air that so many artists put out good albums in 2016, and it lifted, in my opinion, people's excitement for music. However, this year, I feel like there was a sort of a vacuum that was created because this year there were not big names, and there's going to be people that are going to say, what about Lady Gaga? What about Lorde? What about Kendrick? What about, all these people? And listen, it doesn't matter. 2016 was a different animal. So when you get high on 2016 and you go into 2017 and you're like, well, where is everybody? That can be a downside to things. The silver lining to music is the fact that, and this is what I told you before we started, is that this year was about great debut albums. In 5 to 10 years, if you had these same names, more people will have heard about them. I think for movies, for me, this is the first year I've really spent as inside the bubble as I have been. I think there were I really loved the movies that I loved. But if I had to say quality versus buzz, I think buzz won out in the year of movies. And even at that, I got a little bit exhausted, like you said, of hearing about the exact same stories over and over and over again.
Think about even Comic-Con.
Yes.
Like, it's exciting when you hear about all the news and you could speculate.
Yeah.
But then the coverage keeps going. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And that might be our fault because we're not we're not watching Collider for music, and we're not watching Collider for TV. So maybe that's
because they don't exist.
Partially our fault. Yeah, but
it's a problem inside the bubble for sure.
Yeah.
I think for television, for me, pretty much echoing what you said exactly, is that, again, like music, it was a year for surprises, but those surprises were much more attainable.
Right.
You know, I mean, anybody could really take part in that. And it felt like every month something was fighting for the number one spot. And from a quality level, listen, I know there's people out there listening to this right now that are not avid TV watchers. And if you are a movie person and you're not watching TV, you need to check out what the fuck you've got going on in your life right now. Because television, people talk about the golden age. It seems like every year that bar is getting raised.
It's also, when it comes to music and television specifically, for me personally, it was also all about the unsuspecting things that came out. With movies, sort of the unsuspecting things for me were like The Big Sick, Wind River, Split. Like, it's like...
Yeah.
Nothing surprised me and came out. I was like, oh, that was really...
And when you say unsuspecting, I think a great way to look at it is we were anticipating so many movies. We weren't anticipating Big Little Lies. Maybe we were, but...
So many shows... I was.
Right.
But I had no idea it was going to be as good, and I had no idea it would still be talked about today.
We weren't anticipating Atypical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There were so many things like Atypical that just came out, or Glow for me. It's like they just kind of kept coming, and yeah.
Actually, I would say TV probably had more of a surprise factor because
Master of None.
Yeah.
Things that had no business being on anybody's radar.
Right.
Even to Netflix, apparently.
And for music in that same discussion, like, for instance, Miguel. I don't like Miguel. I like the album he put out. I don't like Tyler, the Creator. It's going to be in my top 5. You know what I'm saying? I didn't like Harry Styles. You know, it might be your favorite album of the year. So I do think that's exciting as a fan of both television and music. 1,000 Below was somebody that we both shared a great affinity for this year.
You know what album's really, really great?
The one that I suggested to you?
North Lanes.
Ghost. Did you finally listen to it?
I've listened to it like 3 times through already.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Listened to it like 3 times through.
Dude, it's so good.
It is really good. North Lane's album is really good.
And
so,
well, the last thing I'll say, the good news, and I think it's about time to rank, but the good news for music, if you're a music fan and you're like, well, they've made some good points and now I'm kind of down on music. Here's the good news. It can only get more exciting from here. I think next year's music cycle is... Here's what's awesome about music next year. I've been thinking about my most anticipated albums, and it's stressing me out because there's so much good shit that could come out next year.
I went ahead and tallied votes for November, December, mainly because I think
this is like the statistical results.
Star Wars is just the juggernaut of December. There's no contest.
Yeah. Even if Game of Thrones competed with it, I would still give it to Star Wars.
Well, absolutely. When it came to November, I didn't really think a whole lot was going on for music, so I just put it up against movies and TV. And I think The Punisher was the better in terms of like the comic book.
I would agree.
So I just gave it to Punisher. But we were also still like really high on Robot and surprised on Robot. So I think that's a lot of what we were doing in November.
Robot just doesn't have the weight to go up against anything big.
Right, but it still validates sort of how well we thought TV was.
Well, from the critical perspective, yeah, for sure.
I tallied up all the votes. In third place, with 3 votes, music.
Yep.
In second place, with 4 votes, movies. TV with 5.
Right.
So that's where we are. So, Jaye Williams, music in third place, movies in second place, TV in first place. Is that how you would rank the year in pop culture, and would you give TV the pop culture crown?
The non-exciting discussion here is the fact that TV, without a doubt, not only won the pop culture crown for me, it ran away with it. like it was no contest.
Yes.
It's not even fucking close.
I agree.
Where the interesting debate comes into play, which we've constantly had over the course of this podcast, is between music and movies. And I think if you would ask me on any other day for the rest of the year, which we don't have many left, but I could make an argument for either or. Just in this conversation alone, there has been so much negative energy with movies for me. And I'm so positive. I went into this year saying there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to do anything other than a top 10 album of the year list. And I ended up doing a top 25.
Right.
So I think for me, and just thinking about the cultural impact, there were more big name albums, I think, that came out than I thought. Lack of major singles. But I think that negative energy with movies is what's going to put it at number 3 for me.
It's hard for me to gauge what my second and third places are.
Right.
Because
you could literally ask me tomorrow and I would tell you the opposite of what I just said.
I have positive feelings about music.
Right.
And I have negative feelings about movies. But I don't know, since I naturally like movies more, right. I don't know if that negative energy is enough to put music ahead of it,
right.
if you will.
And I get that.
So
you've also seen more movies than I have this year too.
Yeah.
So that's
and I'm still excited about what's left, because
right.
what's left is stuff that's potentially award winning.
Should be the best, yeah.
And it's stuff that I'm hearing I need to catch up on. I'm
right.
not going back and revisiting Power Rangers.
Yeah.
I'm going back and revisiting things like Shot Caller, which apparently has a lot of buzz, or I'm trying to go out and see I, Tonya, or Three Billboards in Ebbing, Missouri. Like, it's stuff that I might not think is the greatest thing ever, but I don't think I'll be disappointed by, or I like the ranking.
Yeah.
Because there was still some fun to be had. I'm thinking about all the trailers that came out that got me excited, things like that. And that just happens in a way, music can't replicate that in a way for me.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with this, but as long as I, add the disclaimer that I felt positively about music, even with that. It just didn't affect me throughout the year, I guess.
They're very close, I think, is the thing that we're saying. But I think the biggest takeaway here, and it might not be like this every year, but there's a unanimous decision that television is the winner of the 2017 Pop Culture Crown.
It's different. 2018, without Game of Thrones, without Stranger Things, I don't know what the event television is.
Atlanta. In
2018. Atlanta will be up there, absolutely. Yeah. But I don't know what event television is in 2018.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we also don't know what surprises we could get.
It's true. Absolutely. I mean, again, like you said, a lot of sleepers on Netflix primarily. Atypical, Master of None, Glow, things like that. So
Big Little Lies 2.
I hope.
That could be in 2019, though, for all we know.
We don't really know where that is. Please catch Jennifer Aniston.
Got another Drake album on the horizon.
The only thing, Black Panther might do it big for us early in the year. Superhero movies next year, I think, will be banging.
Actually, it's a big year for
New Mutants, Deadpool,
Solo,
Infinity War,
Han Solo.
I have no idea how to feel about it.
Of course.
And that's even aside from all the behind-the-scenes stuff. I have to see the footage.
Right.
So we'll know in the next month or so about that.
Did you say Deadpool?
Deadpool 2, yeah. Deadpool 2, X-Men, Dark Phoenix, New Mutants, Infinity War, of course. I mean, it's going to be right now, and I've done this before. I've called it before. But next year, as far as superhero movies go, it's going to be banging. It's going to be banging. And I think we'll have more superhero movies than ever before. I think we'll have 3 X-Men movies, but we only get 1 DC movie, whereas this year we had 2. So it's like, but we're going to have more than ever.
It's strange because, again, I think music is very interesting for next year. But again, music is just so strange and so divided, it seems. It's hard to actually pinpoint, and you just never know what's going to hit. Like, I mean, I don't know. Everybody that released an album and more could release an album next year. So I don't know.
It's true. Hell of a year for television. That's the other thing I was going to ask you too, is like, are we more accustomed to pick TV because it's the one thing that you and I agree on? Like,
I don't think so. I mean,
but next year, I mean, the fact that we don't know where it go, we don't know where TV is going next year. So
I would actually say the opposite, in the fact that any year, if enough good movie, listen, I'm not as big of a movie guy. If I see, imagine if I had 5 movies this year that hit me the way the Blade Runner did, it'd be a completely different discussion.
Yeah.
Imagine, and that's on top of all the tentpole movies we got, or imagine a year where you discovered 5 bands that, you know, reinvigorated your love for music within the same year. And you were like telling me what we should be talking about on Sight and Sound.
Right.
With music. I mean, you just never know, but it's an exciting time. And yeah.
Plot and Use album comes out next year.
Muse?
Plot and Use?
Oh, Plot and, yeah. Nobody cares about
Architects?
That. Maybe Architects. Architects is a big one, but
I could see a lot of stuff happening for me in music next year.
Under Oath, potentially?
Yeah.
Bring Me the Horizon. Listen,
yeah,
there are some massive names in rock music. If there ever needs to be a push for rock music, it needs to be next year, especially because rap is getting so oversaturated.
It would also be a Mice and Men's album, right?
That's right.
Those singles were released forever ago.
That's right. Well, they've already announced the album. The album's coming out.
Oh, so we know. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely coming out. The album cover looks like trash. I mean, one that would fall under the radar, Pianos Become the Teeth, has their new album coming out. Drake is literally in the studio right now. I'm sensing a new Weeknd album coming out next year. Travis Scott's probably got to have something coming out. Those are big artists.
I don't know if TV can win it back to back.
I mean,
it's gonna be tough.
I mean, I think you could put an argument in for. I think the argument last year would have been between, for me at least, TV and music. Obviously, I would have to go through the entire year to make the case for you with music, but yeah, just the fact that last year music had its most financially successful year in a decade, I think is enough to give it like, oh, okay, something's going on here. But yeah, listen, I want to know what other people think. I legitimately want to hear an argument against TV.
I do.
Not winning this.
And you can argue, whether it be in the Facebook group. And if you're not a part of the Facebook group, the link is in this description down below. We would love to have you there. Jay calls it a safe space. We like to share our opinions. We don't like to tear people down. We have fun, but Jay and I literally won't allow people to tear each other down disrespectfully. And
I really want to drop the band hammer on somebody. Like, I really want to. So I'm daring somebody to
like publicly shame them for
be a dong.
I've been ready for the past few weeks to do that.
Yeah, but let's be honest. Whatever you may think about certain Facebook members, nobody is guilty of it at this point. Maybe Brando. What if we ban Brando? Can we just ban Ryan Uchi just because for inactivity?
Oh man, I'd be fine with that.
He sent me a Snapchat. He sent me
our shirt.
Oh, is that what that was?
It was him wearing our shirt.
Which one?
The flowers one. The flourishing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
It's not the flourishing one.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. That's a Very Lovely Podcast. It's the one that Mark Ellis.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. It's the flowers. Anyway, the point is, you can discuss your personal pop culture crown, but it doesn't count because it's not Sight and Sounds.
It's not official, yeah.
In our Facebook group, we'd love to have you there. And also on our, this is going up on SK Plus, if this counts as a weekly.
That's right.
So you can get Sight and Sound Weekly on YouTube.
You can get our Monday show.
Yeah, you can get
SK Plus.
Sight and Sound Weekly every Monday on the SK Plus YouTube channel, not our personal YouTube channel. However, we do have a Sight and Sound podcast playlist on our YouTube channel that includes those.
Yeah. It's been a good year. It's been a really good year. I don't think we could really have asked for a better year. I don't think
in television, absolutely.
I don't think many. No, I'm talking about for the podcast. I don't think there's many podcasts out there. I mean, I'm sure there's bigger ones, but I don't think they've hit some of the milestones that we've hit this year.
Well, yeah. I mean, the stuff we got weekly on SK Plus, which is cool.
TV Time.
We worked with
deal.
TV Time, and we hosted their show, Let's Talk Legion, and then they hosted our leftovers recaps as well.
After Schmo?
After Schmo, yeah, you came on board after Schmo. When was
you came
that?
back to After Schmo?
I came back to After Schmo.
I don't
when
know.
Was that?
I don't know when that was. I mean, the thing for me that and I know we talk about it all the time, the thing for me that I'm probably the most proud of is our community inside that Facebook group. Because if you would have told me, hey man, within the first year of you doing Sight and Sound, you're going to have a Facebook group of people, I would have said, I want nothing to do with that.
And someone else will make it for you.
Yeah,
someone else will make you that important.
Even me, the positive guy, would have said, nobody will be active on that. Nobody will give a shit within a year. And just to have that, you have no idea. So many podcasts out there that are successful do not have that.
And then we just set up guidelines to sort of constrict the amount of posts because it was so exciting for everybody.
I will ban somebody in 2018. It's going to happen.
I was trying to be positive.
I know.
I was talking about how excited everyone is about the...
I want to be big enough to ban somebody.
That Facebook group, you said it the other day, that Facebook group is the only reason why I haven't deleted my Facebook.
I said that today. I said that like an hour ago. Do you have CT?
I do think about deleting my Facebook and just starting another one. Like cleaning the slate on my pictures and activity.
I have pictures. Yeah. Oh, I was about to say something. I don't know if I want it out there. Anyways. Where can they find you on social media?
Find me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find me ripping Mark Hamill.
You can find me at Jaye Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same for both. Look for my Album of the Year videos. They're coming at some point. I do already have my top 10 singles of the year video out. I did a really interesting video. It was a fascinating experiment on sort of like an essay type video that I did in regards to The Last Jedi. And what else do I have going on? Look for, there's no music episode this week that you're listening to this, or I guess the previous week, but I will be in Florida. Look for some vlogs, maybe. I guess I'll do something.
I just realized we're not going to be able to finish talking about Mr. Robot. So I might have to while you're gone.
Oh no. You have to go solo.
I was going to say,
I think you should invite
I was going to ask RB3 on. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally do that.
I might do that, and we can cover.
Spoiler alert, it's amazing. This was an A+ show. There was literally
not a lull.
There was one lull, but it was still a great episode.
Tyrell episode?
No, the one where he went off with the kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the only sort of downtime, but it was still a good episode. Maybe the best season of television? I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. When you get back...
Yeah, we got to do our top 10 TV.
We got to do top 10 TV.
It's got to be top 10. And we're not going to invite Jonathan Paula.
What?
We're not going to invite Jonathan Paul on the
Why?
episode.
I was just about to say we should invite Jonathan Paul.
You guys can do it alone then. He had a terrible list.
Yeah, because
hashtag transparency.
Yeah, it wasn't that great, but
no,
who knows? Maybe he paid more attention this year.
We can do it on our own. Let's invite Josh McCouga. He's not talking about TV anymore.
That's true. All right, that's fair. Shout out Jonathan Paula before you blast him.
Your TV list wasn't good. You were picking like Discovery Channel. Well, Discovery Channel had that one good show.
He did pick Planet Earth 2. Yeah.
Come on, man.
I like Planet Earth 2.
He didn't even know what Atlanta was.
Yeah. He also had Designated Survivor. I don't even think anybody's talking about that show. I didn't even know that it had a season 2.
I feel like he picked shows that ended up being canceled.
I'm going to ask him. I'm going to ask him, like, hey, just out of curiosity, send me your list. And if the list is good, then we'll have him on. Is that fair?
Sure.
He can audition.
His YouTube channel has so many more people than we do.
I know. I love Jonathan Paula.
He's a nice guy.
I love Jonathan Paula, but personally, I just don't at all relate to his list. But that also makes it interesting.
Maybe we need that. Nobody tell him that I was talking shit about his TV list.
Well, I mean, if we have him on the show, I'm definitely going to bring it up. Like, look, let's talk about last year's list.
Okay, fair enough. Didn't 3 of your 10 get canceled? That would be my statement.
I think we did top 5.
Yeah,
because of the 3
like
of us.
This year has to be 10.
Yeah, I think we could do it. I don't know. We'll figure that out. That'll probably be one of our first episodes when we get back. And
name 3 people in our group that don't watch television and that are silly for not doing it.
Eric.
Does Eric
watch
TV?
Eric is notorious for starting older shows and just not finishing them.
Okay.
More then half of the shows
let's do
that we
people
mentioned.
Let's do 4 people. You do 2 and I'll do 2. So Luke is my one.
Well,
he notoriously doesn't watch TV.
The easy go-to is Eric and Ryan, but I don't know. Even Ryan finished The Leftovers.
Yeah.
And he's a fan of, not that Eric isn't, but Ryan is this doesn't apply to 2018 or 2017 very well, but I just feel like Ryan is more of a fan of shows than Eric is. But
also Kevin Marks, even though we were introduced to him through TV, he needs to watch more TV shows.
Yeah.
So
Christina
is killing it.
Is great at television.
Oh, amazing.
She took my suggestion of Room 104.
Yeah.
And ran with it.
I remember that.
Much longer than I did. I only watched the first couple episodes, but yeah. So
last thing I'll say, goal for 2018. Maybe not necessarily 2018.
Patreon.
My next big goal is to get big enough to where Cody Hecker can come on the podcast.
You know what I want? I
What?
want Mr. fucking Shieldsy, my film teacher from high school, to come on over the Christmas break. And I just realized that he just started Christmas break this week, so maybe I'll have him on next week.
Do an after party with him.
I might. I'll hit him up.
All right, that's it.
All right, congratulations, television. You have 2017's Pop Culture Crown, brought to you by the Sight and Sound Podcast.
You can also buy the Pop Culture Crown t-shirt on our
that's true. Yeah.
merch store.
Okay.
SightSoundPod.com. There's a design with the Pop Culture Crown logo. Go pick it up.
Bye.